There's a movement afoot across the United States that seeks to overthrow our legal system and the Constitution to replace it with a foreign legal system that upends our American way of life. It seeks to replace these foundational elements of our constitutional order with Islamic law, known as Sharia. The principles of Sharia are at odds with the Constitution and the laws of the United States. As Sharia fails to include due process, treats non-Muslims as second-class citizens, and prescribes barbaric punishments. All the while, polygamy, misguided corporal punishment for perceived violations of Islam, and acts of violence and terrorism on behalf of Sharia are permitted by its adherents. Sharia encourages violence, silences dissent, rejects religious freedom, and subjugates women and children. Let's be clear. This is not about having the freedom of worshiping a religion of one's choosing, such as Islam, but forcing a foreign legal code that is incompatible with our laws and legal system that provides unwanted consequences to the American people. It's everything we've fought against for more than 250 years. Islamists are forcing their legal code onto non-believers by violence or the threat of it by any means necessary. There's been a 48% increase in green cards to these countries from 2002 to 2023 after 9/11. We must take a sobering look at our immigration policies to ensure we do not admit those who refuse to assimilate and try to establish their own legal code in contravention of our laws. If Texas falls, so does the nation. These efforts to undermine the Constitution and demonstrate political Islam have only been worsened by an unchecked immigration system that admitted Sharia adherence into our borders. Europe gives us a clear example of what will happen if we don't close the door on Sharia now.
Texas MAGA moron Chip Roy, as usual, wasted a tremendous amount of time and taxpayer money on this sham hearing to fearmonger about our Muslim neighbors. Thankfully, Jamie Raskin was there to set him straight.
We live in a country so great that we don't need the anti-Sharia and anti-Muslim legislation our friends are proposing today because our Constitution already forbids theocratic imposition and establishment of any kind at all, whether it's Christian white nationalism expressed in compulsory Ten Commandments displays, an Orthodox Jewish set-aside school district in New York, or any effort to replace secular public law with a religious sectarian code, whether that's Sharia law, the Analects of Confucius, the Torah, or anything else. So this completely unnecessary hearing, another distraction from the administration's cover-up of the Epstein files and the continuing brutal violation of people's constitutional rights in Minneapolis, is a wonderful opportunity to remind ourselves why our Constitution has 3 essential religion clauses and why they do all of the work that people are talking about doing today. The Establishment Clause, the Free Exercise Clause, and the clause guaranteeing no religious tests for public office. And if you take time to study them, they will dispel all the anxieties stirred up by legislation and agitation like this. We've got members of this body who vehemently denounce Sharia law, but also agree with Louisiana and Texas that we should be posting the 10 Commandments of some particular sectarian variety up in the schools. When this came up last Congress, there were members of the Oversight Committee who said we should not only be putting the 10 Commandments up in public schools, but in Congress and all public buildings. I told them the 10 Commandments have been doing fine for millennia without an endorsement by the Freedom Caucus in the House of Representatives. This is res judicata. It's a closed case. The government cannot endorse Muslim law, Jewish law, Christian law, Methodist law, Baptist law, none of it. So we don't need a special anti-Sharia law or a special anti-Sharia caucus. The First Amendment already takes care of it. To uniquely blockade members of a particular religion, here Islam, from participating in government or politics, the kind of thing you do hear from people calling for Ilhan Omar to be expelled from Congress or deported from the country, that plainly violates Article 6, Clause 3 of the Constitution, which says no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So let's repose some of our faith and trust in the founders of the Constitution. The Establishment Clause, the Free Exercise Clause, the ban on religious tests for public office, they've been working pretty well for America. I think they take care of every single thing that anybody's talking about in this hearing.
So I think Chip Roy decided to hold a hearing like this, particularly in the context of increased hostilities with Iran and the administration's unwavering commitment to protecting the current Israeli government, because he wants to instill more fear into American citizens, particularly Texas citizens, right, about Islam, right, and Muslims. He wants there to be increased hostility towards them and that they're trying to impose a religion on people, specifically in Texas, where he thinks, oh, they want everybody to adopt the Muslim way and that this is how it has to be when there's very little evidence to show that. And now his intended audience, for this distraction from the Epstein cover-up by the administration are his potential Republican voters, right, for the primary election coming up, where, oh, you feel this way about Muslims? Yeah, I do too. So I'm going to placate, or I'm going to play to your fears, play to your emotions about this religion, about people who practice Islam. So that's his intended audience. He's trying to get more votes for this upcoming election. And while not every Republican voter cares about that, there are voters who do in Texas specifically, because that's where he's a representative. And so he wants to take their issues, take their fears, and validate them, even though, again, they're not founded in anything true.
Epstein's lawyers synopsized and quoted Trump as saying that that Jeffrey Epstein was not a member of his club at Mar-a-Lago, but he was a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and he had never been asked to leave. And that was redacted for some indeterminate, inscrutable reason. I know it seems to be at odds with some things that President Trump has been saying recently about how he had kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club or asked him to leave, and this was at least one report that appears to contradict it.
What did you see specific to President Trump or President Clinton, and were there specific redactions to them?
Well, I just gave an example of one redaction related to President Trump. I did not see any redactions related to President Clinton.
What was the smoking gun in all this?
Well, I don't. Here's the thing: the Department of Justice is under orders from Congress to release the entire Epstein file. They released 3.5 million documents, and they've withheld 3 million documents. I think that the Department of Justice has been in a cover-up mode for many months and has been trying to sweep the entire thing under the rug. The more that I've gotten into it, the more I believe that the survivors here, the victims who are now active citizens for justice, really are leading the way. And we need to be having hearings with the survivors to hear from them about their experiences so they can explain what happened and so they can begin to set forth a theory of what took place. We need to be investigating the money. We need to be investigating the organizational hierarchy. There's no way you run a $1 billion international child sex trafficking ring with just two people committing crimes, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. No way. It doesn't work like that.
Well, I absolutely believe Raskin's claims about Trump and the DOJ's unreleased trove of Epstein files and how, this one report says by Epstein's lawyers that, Epstein was a member or was a guest of Trump and Mar-a-Lago, not a member, and he was never asked to leave, which that's not what Trump said. That's not what Trump has positioned, right, publicly. What else is new? Trump probably lied, okay? And then I also believe that, this is a complete cover-up. They've been trying to sweep this under the rug, as Raskin points out. And when you think about his testimony earlier, it all makes sense that the Republican Party is more worried about distracting the public from the Epstein scandal than going hard on trying to get justice for the victims by any means. And again, I like that he points out how the survivors, they are leading the way, and they need to be out there because these people have done horrible things to them, and there needs to be accountability. There needs to be, arrest and people going to jail for this, because as Raskin points out, you don't have this high level child sex trafficking ring where only two people are punished. Please, come on. And again, the Republican Party, they're not trying to get any justice for the victims. That's what's sick about all this. But that is in direct contrast to Raskin and Ro Khanna's strategy.
The Epstein Transparency Act requires them to unredact those FBI files. And yet the Justice Department said to me and to Congressman Massey, we just uploaded whatever the FBI sent us. And guess what? The FBI sent scrubbed files. That means the survivor's statement to the FBI, naming rich and powerful men who went to Epstein's island, who went to his ranch, who went to his home and raped and abused underage girls or saw underage girls being paraded, they're all hidden. They're all redacted. It's a little bit of a farce. They're inviting all the members of Congress to go to see the Department of Justice, quote unquote, unredacted files, but they've got all redacted files from the FBI. And it's not the fault of the Justice Department attorneys. They were just told upload things that Donald Trump's FBI had already scrubbed. Who are they protecting? Why are they protecting these rich and powerful men, people I call part of the Epstein class? Why are we in a country where there is no elite accountability for people who do the most heinous things? It's not just about the 1,200 survivors. It's about 2 tiers of justice in America. It's about people who can accumulate wealth and power and don't have to care about the rest of America. They have destroyed so much of this country.
It's inherent to our economic system that these 2 tiers of justice exist, because there must always be an underclass that the ruling class is exploiting to maintain that power and privilege in society. Because you have all these wealthy, powerful men who have done evil, monstrous things to girls, to children. And the people who are in charge don't want them to get in trouble. They're trying to cover it up. Again, while they have exploited people at a lower level in terms of a hierarchy when it comes to class and status. It's so, oh my gosh. What we're seeing right now should be talked about every single day on the news. Every single day. There's no reason that this shouldn't be getting more coverage. I mean, do people realize what they did? For how many years? Listen, we're going to continue to talk about it because there's no way coming back from that. Like, I know Caroline Levitt said we need to move on. We're not moving on ever. Ever. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.